Hi, welcome to another video. So today I'm going to be talking a little about each of the books in the Anne of Green Gables series and reading a bunch of quotes of my favorite quotes from them. As I've read them, I've made a lot of notes, and I just thought it'd be fun to talk through some of my favorite quotes with you. So hopefully these will make you want to read the rest of the Anne of Green Gables series, because you might have read the first book or even watch the TV shows or whatever, but I think if you enjoy these quotes, you should definitely try out the rest of the series. So let's get started. First, I'll start with Anne of Avonlea. So, of course, first book is Anne of Green Gables, but I thought I'd read quotes from the other books in the series, since they're less known. I'm just going to be, these aren't all profound or anything. I just want to share some of my favorites that I have. She had a special prejudice against Yankees. Her husband had been cheated out of $10 by an employer for whom he had once worked in Boston, and neither angels nor principalities nor powers could have convinced Mrs. Rachel that the whole United States was not responsible for it. This one is fun, something that another Annish philosophy. She said, whenever you looked forward to anything pleasant, you were sure to be more or less disappointed. Perhaps that is true, but there is a good side to it too. The bad things don't always come up to your expectations either. They nearly always turn out ever so much better than you think. And that's just cool, just an example of what Anne is like. She's just it's just a cool thing. It taught me a little, just we worry so much about the bad things, but they don't turn out so bad either. Gilbert, having tried to please both sides, succeeded as is usual and eminently right in pleasing neither. So Anne is nervous about her first day of teaching school. And someone tells her, you'll hardly fail completely in one day, and there's plenty more days coming. So don't worry about it. So, in this book, Marilla adopts twins, and one of them, named Davy, is always kind of running around, and they tell him, you need to be a good boy and sit still. And he says, can't you be good running around just as well as sitting still? I thought that's fun. So Anne is kind of trying to help mother Davy, and she talked to him seriously, a method in which she had great faith, not altogether unjustified by results. So I guess I should try that out when I'm older or babysitting or whatever. Just talk to a kid. They probably want that kind of thing. So this grumpy old man tells Anne, so he had told someone I think he told Mrs. Lynde that she was a gossip and a busybody and whatever. And he says, it was the truth, and I believe in telling the truth to everybody. But you don't tell the whole truth, objected Anne. You only tell the disagreeable part of the truth. Now you've told me 12 times that my hair was red, but you've never once told me that I had a nice nose. Jane says she punishes her pupils when they make funny speeches, which is probably why she finds teaching monotonous. But if she is determined to have her feelings hurt, it can't be helped. Milty's a great hand at explaining things. Even if he doesn't know anything about a thing, he'll make up a lot of stuff, and so you get it explained all the same. I just looked her straight in. This is some kid talking. I just looked her straight in the face like this. I said, Mrs. Lynde, Father made a pretty good job of picking out my first mother, and I could trust him to pick out just as good as one the second time. Davy is sad. Anne is always praising one kid in her class, and Davy feels like he has to be like that other kid. And Anne says, you can't like different people the same way. You don't like Dora and me the same way, do you? Davy sat up and reflected. No, he admitted at last. I like Dora because she's my sister, but I like you because you're you. And I like Paul because he is Paul, and Davy because he is Davy, said Anne gaily. Davy says, I wouldn't leave my wife for anything like that. I'd just put my foot down and say, Mrs. Davy, you've just got to do what'll please me, 'cause I'm a man. That'll settle her pretty quick, I guess. It's the men that have to do the asking. I don't know why they have to do it always, grumbled Davy. Seems to me that everything's put on the men in this world. Okay, so next I'm going to read some from Anne of the Island, which is the next book where Anne goes to college. And I like this book because, I don't know, partly because of just, I don't know, it helps me dream of whenever I go to college, and just hanging out with my friends like she does is cool to think about. And also the romance in this book is interesting. I like how it ended. I can't do a single useful thing, and I'm very extravagant. Oh no, my husband must have heaps of money, says this girl that Anne meets. Her name is Philippa. She's a very interesting character. Oh, I like this one. I'm sure no life can be properly developed and rounded out without some trial and sorrow, though I suppose it is only when we are pretty comfortable that we admit it. Facts are stubborn things, but as someone has wisely said, not half so stubborn as fallacies. This one just doesn't make any sense. You can reform a man, you can't reform a jellyfish, of course. Satan made you do that, said Dora reproachfully. He didn't, cried Davy indignantly. I just thought it out for myself. He says he's lived so long 'cause he always smoked tobacco and it killed all the germs. This is Philippa talking. I'm getting quite expert at marketing. It's better fun than flirting, concluded Phil gravely. Dora had earache after it, only it wasn't in her ears, it was in her stomach. I didn't have earache anywhere. Next book is Anne of Wendy Poplars, where she goes and is principal of a school for 3 years. I don't have any notes for that, but it is a fun one too. Don't skip it. And then number 5 is Anne's House of Dreams, where she settles down with her husband and starts her home. And I don't have any quotes for that one either. Then number 6 is Anne of Ingleside, which is just fun, like her kids' adventures and everything. Oh, another thing about House of Dreams, it was very emotional to me. Book 7, Rainbow Valley, is more of the kids' adventures and everything. These are some of Anne's kids talking to each other. So you had the toothache again last night? Walter shivered. Yes, a raging one. I couldn't sleep a wink, so I just paced up and down the floor and imagined I was an early Christian martyr being tortured at the command of Nero. That helped ever so much for a while, and then I got so bad I couldn't imagine anything. And then the last book, book 8, Rilla of Ingleside, is one I really love because I see myself in it so much. It's about Anne's last born, a girl, and she's 15, and then World War I starts. And Rilla's the 15-year-old girl. Rilla's a little different than me, but her circumstances and what happens, so I just compare the war to the pandemic, and it's just like she's growing up during this world crisis, and I just see myself in that so much, and it's really cool seeing what happens and everything. I even wrote a paper on it for my homeschool. You'll begin to taste life soon enough. Taste life, I want to eat it. I'll be 15 in another month, and then nobody can say I'm a child any longer. Next month I'll be 15, and next year 16, and the year after that 17. Could anything be more enchanting? This war won't last for years. It'll be over in a month or 2. England will just wipe Germany off the map in no time. How wicked I was to wish that something dramatic would happen, she thought. Oh, if we could only have those dear, monotonous, pleasant days back again, I would never grumble about them again. Mrs. Dr. dear, I have made up my mind to be a heroine. So, Rilla has to take care of this baby, and she says, but she was not going to back down now, not she. She would look after this detestable little animal if it killed her. She would get a book on baby hygiene and be beholden to nobody. She would never go to Father for advice, she wouldn't bother Mother, and she would only condescend to Susan in dire extremity. They would all see. Suppose, she thought, I was a tiny helpless creature, only 5 months old, with my father somewhere in France and my poor little mother who had been so worried about me in the graveyard. Suppose I was lying in a basket in a big black room without one speck of light and nobody within miles of me for all I could see or know. Wouldn't I cry too? Wouldn't I feel just so long forsaken and frightened that I'd have to cry? I thought that was an interesting thing about why babies cry when they're alone, you know. So it's interesting reading about World War I from the point of view of Canada. Susan Anne and Gilbert's just kind of housekeeper, she doesn't like Woodrow Wilson very much. Woodrow Wilson is going to write a note about it, so why worry? A pretty president. And Susan banged her pots about wrathfully. President Wilson was rapidly becoming anathema in Susan's kitchen. The body grows slowly and steadily, but the soul grows by leaps and bounds. It may come to its full stature in an hour. From that night, Rilla Blythe's soul was the soul of a woman in its capacity for suffering, for strength, and for endurance. We were the children of yesterday, Walter. Fight a good fight for the children of today and tomorrow. There's this really fun part. Why, that is impossible, Rilla. Why? Briefly demanded the organizer of the Junior Red Cross and transporter of babies in soup tureens. Miranda, if you put yourself in my hands, I'll have you married to Joe before 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. This one, Rilla of Ingleside, was pretty emotional too. In March of the year of grace 1918, there was 1 week into which must have been crowded more of searing human agony than any 7 days had ever held before in the history of the world. And in that week, there was one day when all humanity seemed nailed to the cross. On that day, the whole planet must have been agroan with universal convulsion. Everywhere the hearts of men were failing them for fear. So anyway, I hope that made you want to read the Anne of Green Gables series. Tell me in the comments if you'll be reading it or what you think of it if you have read it. And I'll probably make more videos about this series, but I just wanted to get started with some of my favorite quotes. So, bye!